Amazing. You're welcome. You're We know what from. Yeah. That's what I told my sister. You come to work today. You want to be up. Something.
We do not see the final version of filling this agreement.
I have a branch.
So just that.
If I told you I'm ready, don't make it over you said. It was just really wrong. Yeah. I would have been. Tell me what's wrong.
Someone's
wrong.
They can still bring Parker up there. It was kind of.
At this time, we'll call the June 2nd, 2025 West School Board meeting to order. Comments from pictures and guests. Not all at once. I'm gonna give a motion. Is there any? So sit again. Give a motion to approve the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
In favor? No. I get a motion for the consent agenda.
I will make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Can I make one comment on that?
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at the cash summary report in there, there's several red negative balances. And that's normal in the month of June because we are still waiting on our final state aid payments that'll come about the 18th of this month, which will reimburse so we can make all final. We turn in by May 6th all the money we got from the county, and then the state calculates what they have left to send us. So in general and supplemental, we're still about $1.5 million to 1.2 million of final, and then we'll close the budget out. So
You're good. Anybody second for that?
Nope, second.
All in favor? 7 up. Academic reports.
Brenna is at a conference.
Okay.
And then Matt Stapp, his wife's grandma passed away, so they're flying out tonight to go out of state to attend the funeral this week. So they're reporting.
Good evening. A lot going on, but not a lot to really share out. We have driver's ed started. We had about 37 students sign up there. It's our first year using the online curriculum, so we're learning about that, and it actually went really fast for some of them. Some of them have finished, and a few of them are finishing up. So we did not need as long of class time. So we're learning there, but I know Mr. Meyer started driving with his students today, and then Mr. Marcotte, I believe, starts this weekend. So we'll be getting those going. We did start summer school Wednesday. We invited 17 students to attend. So far, 10 have taken advantage of the opportunity. Some needed to finish their driver's ed class first, so they'll probably start with us here as the week goes. And then that will run through June 20th or when they finish up, whichever comes first. And then graduation, thank you all for being there. We did have 56 students. Well, And then we are getting started with summer conditioning and camp. Today was day one and there was an excellent turnout. Cole Bottom, our new AD, stopped in today and I took him out, was able to introduce him to a lot of coaches because there were a lot of coaches there besides kids. And they were all really excited about the turnout and how hard kids were working. So, real positive start there. The key will come after days 3 and 4 when they're sore and are they still getting up and coming and keeping them motivated. So we'll get there. And then we're working on filling some of the following positions. Our English, 9 through 12 English teacher, a prom, and an assistant prom sponsor, a pep club sponsor, and an esports coach. And we're in the midst of the West Stepper interviews on that one. So that one's almost done now. Questions?
Good evening, everyone. Well, we did it. We made it through another year. So thank you all for your support in helping us get that done. You can get a glimpse of next year's enrollment. Of course, those numbers are moving targets right now, but if we were starting school tomorrow, that was where we ended. Shout out to Mr. Korb. He was not super thrilled, but he did a great job. He and I attended a conference in Alma, food service farms to school that they had. And I don't know the whole gist of their what they talked about. It was school food service stuff, Nebraska, Missouri, and Kansas. However, we were there to talk about our outdoor garden space. We did just bring in our butterfly garden, so we threw that in there as long as our front, and then we connected it to not the food to the table, which does happen a little bit. First graders don't really like radishes, but we tried, you know. But we did put lettuce in one day, and they ate more salad that day than ever because they grew it. So, you know, little things like that. But we came and talked with them about how Mr. Korb was using it as a counseling tool. So we talked to them about that, and different kids want to be in the butterfly gardens. One of them wants to go to the garden, but he just wanted to collect bugs. But that's okay, because when you're getting back to center, if a little roly-poly is what's going to help you be able to be in the classroom, we will go find roly-polies. So the radishes were named, by the way, when they planted the seeds, they named them. So that's part of the thing. So, but we shared we just kind of told our story about what we're doing. And they seemed to enjoy it, asked some questions. We got some good feedback also, so we had a nice time. The summer work is getting going everywhere. We were just over at the preschool today, punch list, going around kind of making what's our first hurdle, and it's clean and paint. There's a couple of rooms that need a little bit more moved out, but other than that, we're going to start filling some holes and getting walls ready for paint. June 12th and 13th, it's Community Paint Day. We're getting that out on social media. It's out there. So sign up. It's free. We'll charge you a bit to come and help. So we've got some colors chosen. The walls are in very good shape. It's just going to take a little cleaning. And the paint we want to paint will be accent colors. So there may be a green on one wall and then green around the door. So they can identify that as the green room, the purple room, the yellow room, things like that.
I guess, you know.
So, you got some yellow? Good. Oh, yes, you do. Yes, yeah. So we've got that going on, and then after we get that finished, they'll go in and start to do the floors, which need a lot of attention. Then in July, we'll get another crew together. We'll start moving our stuff out of our storage unit. We went down to Washburn Rural and picked up another 2 truckloads and trailer full of equipment again from Washburn Rural. I think we're going to talk about that a little later. So we've got 2 storage house full of things, stuff at the elementary stored. So it's progressing along. And then I want to give a shout out while everyone contributes to Chastity Pfizer and Becca Watson, who just keep that elementary chugging along. And those May days are hard. There's lots of kids anxiety. There's teacher anxiety. The parents are anxious, and they just did a fantastic job of closing out the year. So if you see them, give them a rah-rah and a pat on the back, because they did a great job. So any questions for me?
Did we send out acceptance letters to the students?
We are sending an email out tomorrow to say, watch your mailbox, because I want to mail those out. And then we're getting those letters out this week. Just kind of holding on through May to see if I can get a few more people before, you know, so we're not constantly sending a letter. If there's an acceptance letter coming out with enrollment information and kind of next steps.
I know some young moms that are looking forward to them.
Well, and as I thought you had heard, if anybody calls and says, I have a question, have them call the school, have them call. Of course, at this point now, it's a little tricky to catch me, but at least leave a message or call the central office and they'll get a hold of me. Happy to answer questions, but I know that a lot of questions are going to a lot of other people. Get them to give me a call or an email. So yeah, those letters will go out this week.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Keystone Report.
Matt and I are sharing this one, because Matt stepped in for me this month to go to that Keystone meeting. First of all, Brad and I attended the groundbreaking for the new JDLA facility in Oskaloosa on May 15th. So look for that in the Valley Falls Vindicator probably in the next week or two, if it isn't already, is it? Never mind then. And then JDLA, I think, has found a home at the Ozaki Methodist Church. Is it the Methodist Church?
Yeah. One week.
Yeah, Ozaki Methodist Church. They're still working on the final details of an arrangement, something in writing. But it'll be for at least the first 6 months of next year for the JDLA students. And then I think that's about all I was gonna cover. Matt's got a couple things he's gonna talk about as far as the budget over there that they talked about on Wednesday.
Yeah, so well, the one they talked about the budget, they talked about mentoring program, and they talked about where they were gonna go after build time.
Yeah.
So that was I'll start with the mentoring program. They adopted a mentoring program to put teachers, experienced teachers in with substitutes to, give them a little help throughout the way. They're not, think about some of these pairs and stepping into these big roles.
Yeah.
So I thought it was great, and everybody,
Got the long-term stuff.
Yeah.
Right, we've got.
everybody went for it. I mean, it was a no-brainer. And I do have a little point to it. But the big one was their insurance has gone up 271,000 and some change. Their step in lane went up 25,500. And to add $1 to the pairs wages, which they're at 14 now, to take them to 15 is 147,000. So they're increasing their budgets 377,309. So there was talk about how to tackle it and what to do, and it's just one of those ones that what do you do? I mean, you don't want to short the insurance. You don't want to. Yeah, you don't want these poor pairs making 14. It's a difficult job. So that's really all we talked about. We talked a little bit about the assessments, but I don't think that was quite ready yet. But
And we'll talk more about Keystone later. Brad's gonna give us all the deets here in a little bit on the funding and all that fun stuff.
it was a meeting where we went in. They lost their place in Billtown. So I didn't know what to expect, and turns out they're gonna be going up the hill. So hopefully that all works out for them.
Yeah, well, that'll be closer to their offices anyway, keep everybody together in the same town. I think that might be best for everyone anyway.
Yeah.
I am curious what all will have to be done to that building.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I always have to look this up. PDC, Professional Development Committee.
So we have, Rhonda's gonna make sure she doesn't have to stand by herself, because Rhonda is on the committee. But I'll turn it over and let them kind of share why they're here. And
Well, I guess the main reason we're here is our 5-year plan was up, and so we have to renew it. Just to kind of go through our bullet points. So the other members include Robin Buss at the middle school. I'm the rep at elementary, Lisa Sage at high school. And then Mrs. Frakes is our admin. And then this year we added Haley Dean, and that has been a great asset to the committee. Kind of go through here really quick. We served 3-year terms. I didn't know we only served 3 years. I should come on your third 3-year term. But
So at like mine will be this year and then we'll just put out, does anybody else want that? And if nobody else, then I stay on. If not, I think we would go to a vote. And so each one of us will have, and then the next year it's the next school. So that'll be on a rotation. Let's see. One of the things I learned through all of this is the training that we are to get through PDC. That was a new one for me. We've learned a lot in the last year and a half because we have worked on this plan all year, this whole school year. So we've gone through it, then send it to Greenbush, and then it'll go to the state once you guys look at it and approve. Let's see. We will meet quarterly, and so we do keep notes and we have an agenda. And so if you ever want to see those notes, you can ask them, we can make sure that they get to you. Down on our very last one, that's kind of where it talks about our PD points. So for every hour that we sit in a chair and learn, that's where the point, and then 20 points equal 1 college hour. So and then some of the things that we do as a committee is like we would meet and somebody had gone to something and we decide, we all approve, like if there's an issue, yes, that would count, or no, that wouldn't count. We had a few of those this year that we haven't had in the past, and especially with all of the new licensing and all that kind of stuff, we're running into some different professional development. So
okay. So the plan itself will help all staff kind of know, here's how it works. Anybody comes in or a board wants to look at it, this is how what your committee's chair's responsibilities are, how points are decided. Using the PDP toolbox is very helpful. It takes a lot off of a person doing it electronically. They can go in and see without having to go find their building rep. How many points do I have? Where am I at? They can go in and look, and their transcript and their points are all listed right there for them. We are working on our plan of how we explain all this to our staff, those that have been here a while and those that are new. And we're working on some shortcut sheets. Like this is where you go if you want to request to go to a conference. These are the buttons you click. This is after you've been to the conference. What do you put in? What counts for points? What doesn't? It's like when they go to vendors, they can't, if they spend 6 hours at vendors, they can't count all those points. So spelling some of that out for them.
and documentation that goes along with that.
And the lunches, and like if you want to double points, like you went and you learned this, but now you're applying it in your classroom, you can double or triple points, and helping them understand all that and walking them through that and the processes for it. And so it comes back to having us a nice document that the state knows we are doing this, and then we turn that into them. And we used Greenbush's template, which was really helpful. It was very similar to what we had, just a little bit different languages, so we kind of merged the two.
That's what I was gonna ask, is who comes up with these rules? Is that a Jeff West thing, or is that something that's like state?
Most of them are state. These things have to be in there. There were things that they have highlighted, like just copy and paste this, and then if you want to make some additional building or district protocols, you can do that, but we had to meet certain state criteria.
And they're able to check prior to going, if they count their points, or
They should be able to, if they put in to go,
Yeah.
and then we can say, yeah, you're approved to go or not to go. But also we can have some of those conversations then about, well, what really is this that you're going to? So,
And those align, or in theory should align with your, like your personal goals. So we each make personal goals. So when we're going to a conference, it should align with our personal goals that we have for whatever, because we all have different positions.
Yeah.
So yeah, so those align with that, then it should be one of those goals. Yeah, and I wanted to say too, so we've gone over to the PDC toolbox, which is Greenbush, and it has been fantastic. It's been a little bit of a learning curve, but then now they're going to come out with a new format. So we've been working on these steps, and then now they're going to have a new format. But I think it's even easier to read. I think it's way easier. It's just been like when we were using the other one, we couldn't find things and it was.
And we didn't have any way we could get a hold of.
Yes.
And they have been very,
Oh my
there's
gosh,
a lead person and you talk to her and she's like, gotcha, take care of it.
She'll be
Email me
taking
this.
care of it while we're
Yeah.
on the phone.
It's
Yeah.
been fantastic.
Yeah. Is there any questions?
So our special meeting last Thursday talking about calendar and all the days next year and all the trainings and all the professional development. That's what this group does, is then helps make sense of that, move it towards each individual employee's PDC plan.
Not to get into any detail or anything, but is everything all caught up with the people that are doing that? I know that there was a time post-COVID that things were falling through the cracks at no fault of anything. Is that, we have that remedy with Greenbush, and is the process better now than, is it working like it was pre-COVID and all that?
Better
Yeah.
than pre-COVID. And
Or during that,
we went from the we
board.
went from the front line to the PDC in that time frame, which has also helped. And as long as the individual has put their things, their information in, we should be caught up.
I just know that we had some issues.
Yes.
Maybe abuse of it or things
Yep.
falling through the cracks. I don't know if that was something that we need to continue to visit or we're all good off of.
I think
we're all
pretty
good. Yeah, we got that
I
all.
figured because we haven't heard about it, but you're talking about it, so.
Yep. Good question.
And that, through that whole process, that's where we learned, like, at those meetings that we talk about, some, this is, we're approving this, and then we kind of do it as a group and it's not on one person.
Yeah.
So, that's a
That's
great.
kind of what I was getting at.
Yes.
just to
Yes.
Make sure that no one's under that smoking barrel.
Yep. Yep.
Good deal.
Well, the nice thing for me is when it comes to me, I know it's already gone through this group. And it's gone through a process. And there's a rigor to it, so.
The whole point was just to see the meeting from us, like if there's a better way to do it that.
Nope, and that's what this will be.
Approving the plan.
That's the simple.
Since it is 28 pages or so. I mean, we're gonna do it next July, everybody's time to read through it.
Like anything, this is your first time seeing
Yeah.
it, so it's a receive item.
Yeah.
We try to give you time to look at it, read it. If you have questions, then it would be on the July meeting. But that's up to this board.
I'm fine with whatever y'all wanna do if you want. I got familiar with this process a while back, and now that I know that we don't have the same issues, then I'm trust the team we have, but I also understand you all want to
gone
read
through
it.
Or been through it, but I don't know that.
Is there a problem with waiting or?
No,
We're on the timeline.
yeah,
You're not?
we got it. I think this fall is when,
We'll let the other ones look through it and we'll
Yeah,
hammer it out
absolutely.
real quick
Yeah.
next month.
If you have any questions,
Yeah.
any of us on the
Yep.
committee, awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
We don't have a breach.
Moving on to enrollment, 2025-2026 enrollment in class fees.
So these were presented last month. What's in red is new. I will say that though, but I did put in red on the back. That's still on there, but last year the board approved to not charge students. So I just highlighted it because if it's the wish of the board to continue not to charge students, then we would remove that from it. But that's why that's red, is just to draw the attention that unless the board takes action to put it back or change it, that will.
Been financially burdensome to.
Yes, I mean, that is. So this, and you would see in the financial reports, we did have to, as a district, transfer money to the high school activities fund of about $7,000 to cover the cost. Now, is that all attributable to the students? Well, we also had uniforms for the most expensive sport. So, I mean, but we, you know, when we don't charge students, that's a loss of revenue, and that money goes to pay officials, uniform replacements. So there is, as a district, we have to cover what that doesn't bring in.
And cost, entry fees, cost went up,
Yeah,
official pay went up. When we combined the league, we actually dropped $1 on our adult entrance. We were fixing 5, and so adults, now it's just 5 across the board, and then we don't charge the students, so several factors.
yeah.
Did you feel like there was more of attendance? With students being able to get free?
I felt there were more middle school students that came to high school games.
Mm-hmm.
High school, give or take, depending on the game.
Okay.
So
I know school pride is lacking with that, students going to.
It didn't look like there was much change.
yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think so either.
So
That was my big thing when we did this, was try to encourage more attendance, and I don't. If the attendance didn't go up, it didn't get,
Yeah, those are
then
point
I don't-
that have the attendance go up.
then I don't
Then a
need
lot
to
of
charge
kids
for
can
it.
afford
I mean, we're
that
going
extra.
into a year where things are a little tight, and we just heard that $7,000 and all the others, like.
What
it
if we,
Didn't have a huge impact.
what if we increase adult prices by $1, charge $6 for adults, or 7, and 7 sounds high, but,
So you could do that for non-league
okay,
events, but our league events.
they're Keisha.
No, it's a league.
The league agrees that way when parents go all around the
Same everywhere.
leagues, they go.
Oh.
Now, that's something. Well, this isn't new. That's something that you could think about students and whether or not we want to do something for this year. But I just highlighted it because it was on there last time, and I wanted to make sure I drew to your attention. That will come off unless you do something different, and that's something you could think about for the July meeting. I mean, you can think about it now too. But for this one, it's the changes on the front.
So everybody in the league doesn't charge high school, middle school students, or is we can do that differently?
If you're going to charge, here's what the fee is for the
Okay,
league,
okay.
or the entrance admission for a league.
So what about the ones that aren't, like, is there no control over the ones that, like, for example, Hayden, they're not in our,
So they probably go off of whatever their league admission costs are. Or like if we're like going to Fulton to a wrestling tournament, their own tournament, not a league tournament, they can set the prices for what they want for that tournament.
okay. I noticed last year going to a football games, JV, we didn't charge to get into JV football games, but we went to Hayden and we got charged to get over there. So, huh?
8th grade football game, $8 a person.
Yeah, 8th grade, yeah.
At our school,
Right.
I was gonna say, at our school.
So we can hold off on the student athletic fees, but we probably need to hammer out the activity.
The class fees, it's really on the front page, the middle school class fees, the 2 new ones, and then the high school ceramics and culinary arts with the chef.
Brad, what are your thoughts on the athletic fees? I mean, if it didn't work our idea, and I know what I think about it now, but like you're the guy with the most knowledge on the budget, is it something that responsibly we probably ought to bring back to some extent?
It would be worth the discussion. I'll just give you a non-voting opinion. I think we have a good student turnout. When I look around the league, we have a lot of kids there that are cheering, they're standing, they're not. Now, I'm not standing next to them like Mrs. Briggs are, but I think we have a really good student body. When we go to other league events and you see kids just sitting there, not engaged. So now, I didn't see that this drew a lot more in, so I don't think it had the effect. But you go to a football game, our kids are standing, our student section is standing and cheering. Now the middle school kids, I learned the hard way where middle school kids hang out during a football game, and I don't sit there anymore. So my wife reminded me, you're not a school administrator anymore, don't.
You don't have to say
So we
that.
just moved, but anyway, but at basketball, our middle school kids set up there. So I think we have I don't think it had the effect that we wanted as far as bringing people in. But with that being said, the kids that have always come, they do a great job. And they cheer. And sometimes they have a theme. They dress up. It's hunting season. It's highway construction worker game. It's
He needs to wear a ghillie suit. So
yes.
Yeah.
Well, can we just like bring them back at a cheaper rate?
That's what I
Something like this,
Yeah.
gradually get
That's what I
there and
was
just kind of trial and error. I mean, I love the idea of a student here.
The league.
Oh, the league. So if you're gonna charge you half,
$5 across the board.
Where do, I assume we send our athletic director to those league meetings? So he could advocate to
Yes.
increase that? Nobody,
One vote.
right, yeah, yeah. I'm gonna start lobbying.
And there was a lot of talk when we talked about what it should be, because the Mid-East League was there, we were 6 and 5, and so when they came together, we kind of merged.
Gotcha.
But we got rid of our student passes with our own kids attending our own home events, which was not a league
Right.
thing.
And we want to bring that back.
Well, that's up.
That's what we're.
And that would we put that on the enrollment on the website for somebody to purchase that?
Yeah, because otherwise people will always ask.
Last year was the first year we didn't charge student annual passes.
Yeah.
And I mean, it adds up.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to make up the difference.
But we don't need to decide that today.
We don't need to decide that one today. It would be good to decide the other ones because they'll be putting out, this will go into the handbooks, the enrollment.
I have a quick question on the weightlifting $20 fee. What does that go towards?
They use it to replace weight equipment.
Okay,
That all, as it accumulates, then you just get that $3,000 piece of equipment or.
right. So would you just pay that after you knew your student was, because it's usually like an elective and there's, like in my son's case, there's way too many kids in his class. So some of them don't get to be in weightlifting unless, selected. So once you're paying your fees, you don't even know your child's in it. So you just go later and pay that $20 fee?
We've had people do both.
Okay.
We've had some pay in those first 3 days, like the high school.
But when we enroll, we don't know if they get to be in weightlifting or not in the middle school. Yeah, because there was too many in Grayson's class.
was that because we didn't have enough coverage and
Can
some
I
turnover?
interject?
Yeah, we just
So
didn't have enough.
Pam and I have been working on the student side of that in Skyward. She's actually considering turning off paying for courses, like those elective courses, until first, like it's past that drop date.
Okay.
So then you know that they're in there and they're staying in there, and that way, because what's happening is that parents are paying for it, their kid didn't get in it, or they dropped it
Then you
within
have
that
to
3 days, and then we
reimburse
have to refund them.
Yeah.
Or put it,
I
and it's to, I'm missing it. Yes.
So that's what I'm
yes,
saying, like with
exactly.
weightlifting, if
Well, I
I paid
was-
for it, and he didn't get in, it
Well, I
didn't, you have to
totally
pay
get that,
that.
but I'm just curious as to why would we would turn, is it because of the space and the classes?
There was
too
just,
big?
I don't
the
know.
class
I don't
was
know that
too
it-
big.
Have enough people.
So
Yeah.
Okay.
Mrs. Newley just said, like, in the beginning of the year, we have way too many in this class.
I'm sure. there's
And
always-
every single one of them, there's 87.
It's
And every.
It's class size.
Yeah, and there's a cool now.
So
I
they
mean-
couldn't all be in it, they only got one semester, some of them didn't even get it in those semesters.
We just promoted 72 eighth graders into the
Yeah.
freshman class. And we'll have 82 eighth graders
Yeah, I get it.
next year, so it's
It's just a
But
really big class.
if
they
your
couldn't fit
kid
them all in.
does happen to make it in there,
You could
they're
just go-
proposing adding $20. Because the high school was the only ones contributing to the weight fund.
Yeah. I
And they
was
thought
gonna
it
say,
made
was-
sense.
If you don't know a lot about that stuff, we have really old stuff in there.
Oh,
It
yeah,
is
I
not
just was
cheap.
curious
I mean,
what
you
it
can
goes to,
think-
yeah.
When it comes to weight,
Middle school really.
plan on $1 a pound on the lowest end of it. And
Mhm.
there is a lot of ancient stuff in there. There good stuff in there, but if there's no fund to replace it, then we're welding things back together, or you need a patch shop or a tetanus shop where you come in and touch some things.
Mhm.
I mean, it just is what it is, because that stuff's so expensive and it's not in there, so, I mean, it is just.
It does make sense to shut it off until they know, because you will be refunding back, because every child wants to be in weight.
Right.
Especially in middle
See that
school,
in middle school. High school, that's
like hit or
one
miss.
way or the other, because let's say we shut it off and they don't have to pay until.
Then you have to
drop-
chase it down for
Yeah,
it.
and you gotta chase it.
And
down.
I know
So
that they have to
that's-
do that same thing
that's
with
in the back.
sports,
Yeah.
but it's kind of hard with weightlifting. That was just my only, because that's new. She's gonna have to hustle that $20 down.
Yeah,
because-
Pam's been, us and really trying to
Because that
figure
is
out how
hard,
to.
because you don't
Yeah,
know,
it's a balancing act for sure.
you don't know if your kid's in it.
Yeah.
So does anybody? These fees that we're charging, let's get back to, are we all okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The pricing is fine. Just curious how
It
how
makes
you
sense to
can
me.
you can pay for it.
We also, when we eliminated fees for the few years, that did not go as planned. It was not well received, and it did create a burden on the budget. We thought it was a great idea, but it wasn't received that way, so.
Yeah.
Things cost money.
Yeah, everything.
Well, can we get a motion to approve the class fees then?
I move that we approve the class fees. Do I need to eliminate the athletic part of it?
Oh, no.
It's going as presented.
That's just,
All right. I move that we approve the 2025-2026 student fees as district fees and building accounts as presented.
Second.
All in favor? 7-0. Board goals and strategies.
we have two versions, whichever one you would like. One is the way you'll see it in Diligent. The other is the big copy. So this is a culmination of a lot of work that started last November. And this is where we set with the 4 goals. I like to call them white statements underneath each goal, which I think is the most important part, is why we chose that. And then the strategies from each one of them that came out from 4 separate community engagement sessions. And with that, they're here tonight for any final thoughts, edits. Again, these are written as if they're in pencil, because July something's going to come up and we'll have to adjust, we'll have to pivot, we'll have to whatever. But as of today, I think it's a good place for us then to start working towards. So whether there's any comments, thoughts,
a lot of people time in that.
I just have one question, with the facilities part in there, I mean, obviously we have pursued grants and we will always do that, it's always been part of it, but. What do we? We probably need to budget for that stuff, for like the dollar match stuff, do we have a procedure on? Like, what if somebody came here and wanted us to, brought us a grant, which I know it doesn't work like that, but like we can't necessarily afford everything that comes, do we have?
We would have to bring it to the board for your consideration. As an example, later on, we have had a request for a storage facility at the football field, football track, that they are asking a match not to exceed. So any of, whether it's a donation, whether it's a grant, whether it's, all of those would have to come to the board. Now, I would try to provide you some information before the meeting on it, like in the Friday notes, but all of that would have to come to the board. And sometime, for example, the playground equipment grant, when NECAP decided they couldn't be a part of our preschool, all of a sudden we needed playground equipment. We happened to have a grant that was 100% match. So we get 75,000, we have to match 75,000, we have to, so all of those would have to come to the board to see where the project might fit in our needs list.
So really, we would work backward, like, this is the need. This is what it costs, can we find a grant?
And sometimes grants or requests, especially grants, don't always happen on a timely basis. It's all of a sudden, hey, here's a grant and you got 60 days to make application, and there's a 80%, 20-80, and those are things that we got to weigh. Okay, while that would be nice, it's nowhere on our needs list, or, that would be great. And it's not that much of a cost. We could do that. And even though it wasn't on our list, it is something that is going, but every one of those we'd have to treat individually. I don't know if that helped.
No, there's several misconceptions about how the grant process works, and it's just not as easy as it sounds. We're great, but there does come a point in time on the match ones that we have to be budget conscious, because we might not be able to afford it. I just didn't. They would have to bring that to you before it came to us anyway. No one can go apply for a grant for us. But if they come with the idea, there's been a lot of talk about it, and I just wanted to know if we had like preparation for that as we build it into our goals. Yeah.
And we have a few grants that have been submitted, and we're still waiting on to see if we get. Sadly, depends on what window you're looking in from. Most grants are federal, because there's not a lot of state grants. And a lot of the federal ones have been pulled back. All the FEMA grants where we were going to do the window stuff. Well, just so some of them have been pulled back, some of them are still available. So we will, as an administrative team, so the principals, the assistant principals, our new athletic director, Haley, we will be meeting next Tuesday and Wednesday, 2 days. Take each one of these and start working on, okay, staff recruitment, retention. We're going to go through the strategies and say, what can we start doing in the next 6 months? next 12 months, 18 months, and start coming up with recommendations to bring back to the board on things that we can, you know, levers we can pull, you know. So we will start working next week on specifics for each one of these. And that turns in to a strategic plan where we can start prioritizing, okay, what staff is involved, what financial, human, physical, all those resources we can start prioritizing.
I think it's been handy, you know, when you sit here and think about problems and solutions to be able to look at and go, yeah, that's one of the needs this community said, or a way to solve the problem.
Yep.
There's a blueprint. Yeah, long overdue. Yeah.
And there's things that this board and district have been doing that already match up to this stuff.
Yeah.
And in the future, when I send out Friday reports in preparation for the board meeting, the majority of there will be things that come up we have to deal with, but most of it will be able to say it's goal this, strategy that, this is helping move your work forward.
Anybody got changes, comments? It is an action item.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hear what you guys come up with next week too.
Oh, me too.
For your own. It is an action item.
Yes.
I move that we approve the board goals and strategies as presented.
Okay.
All in favor? 7-0.
I have one thing to add. So in the future, to make things easier, because some of your decisions are going to be easy, some of them are going to be more challenging. Well, in the future, when it's challenging and your neighbor thinks this, or your coffee buddy thinks that, and you're having to make a decision, we'll have that chair in here and vote what's best for the kid sitting in the chair. Sometimes it helps that I might get an earful when I get home or at work the next day, but we made a decision on what was best for the kid in the chair.
I forgot a little bit.
I know.
That did come from Washburn Rule, and we'll talk about that.
You just carry that around with you wherever you go now?
I thought he was bringing it in for him to sit.
I've had it in my trunk since Friday morning.
Have you been waiting
Yeah.
since Friday to do that?
Well, I could have earlier, but I'd have been the only one in here. But I have been waiting for this to be approved.
Very good. Update on Keystone Services.
So there's a lot of, you've got a couple of handouts here, one that looks like this, and one that has training. Thought I'd just take a few minutes because we are a member of Keystone. And sometimes it's good just to have a conversation about, well, what did Keystone do? Especially when a lot of people are like, well, they have the office in Ozaki in JDLA. Well, that is just a piece. So just looking at, and we'll kind of walk through some of these, but this is just kind of a snapshot. So you can see in purple the state percentage of students in Kansas is around 17 to 18% of students around the state have an IEP. In green, we're about 20%. Part of that is because, and I'll just tell you my opinion, I think people move. We're just one layer of the onion outside of urban. And we're rural, urban, suburban, rural. And I think a lot of people, whether you have an IEP or not, believe you can get more individualized services. Especially if I have a student that has a special need. So we're about 20%, which is a little higher than state average. When you look at the second graph, of all of the IEPs in the state, the green are those with gifted. And those are USD 340 numbers. We've gone down a little bit with gifted numbers, but I think that's kind of a trend because you come off you can see COVID, the effects of COVID coming off of that. I think people just kind of, hey, my kid's doing fine. I'm just trying to get them back re-engaged. I don't know, but that's the numbers statewide have kind of trended to go down, and I think we're kind of following that. But gifted, if you look at the pie chart, this is specific to Jeff West. You can see the different exceptionalities. Learning disability is obviously the largest, and that could be a whole host of services that can be provided to those kids. Developmental disability, other health impaired, but that just kind of gives you an idea of all the different exceptionalities just of Jeff West students. If you look at the top of the next page, these are the staff that, the back side of that page. These are the staff that are employed by Keystone, not on our payroll, but employed by Keystone that serve our students. And we'll get into the finances here in a minute that we kind of talked about last month. And then you can see all the services that are available to our district that I don't think a lot of people really think about as being a member of the Keystone Interlocal. Now, interlocals are approved by statute to provide a service to school districts that many of us can't do on our own. So back in the late 60s, early 70s, the legislature approved. They're governed by statute. They have to have a board. They have to, a lot of same requirements that we have. They just can't levy a tax. But pretty much everything else, they operate a lot like we do. But those are the different types of services that are available to our school district, many of them that we use. Their budget is about $10.5 million. And where they get their revenue is 8 of us districts pay a membership based off the percent of our kids that make up. And we're the largest district. We're at about like 18-19% of Keystone or Jeff West. We have 835 kids. That's how state funding is 4.8 million. Federal funding is 1.5. The other are types of grants, services they provide that they get a 10% administrative fee. But the majority of how they're funded is from the state. but that doesn't make up all of it. The state is supposed to, by statute, fund 92% of excess costs for special ed. They're at about 72%. By the way, I have school finance task force the next 2 days. They're arguing that. But anyway, we have, when the state doesn't fund, the only place that they can go is to the local districts to have to kick in on our local assessment. So that 4.8 million flows through all of us districts, and we send it right on to Keystone, and then we pay our own fee to be a member. And that's where predominantly, because they don't have a capital outlay. They can't levy a tax. I mean, they're in multiple counties with multiple, all of us school districts contribute to that. The other page are just different types of trainings that they provide. And again, we send some of our staff to that. They do trainings for when they bring the principals in. They do trainings for their own staff. They do the same type of professional development stuff that we do for our teachers. And there are times when we request that the teachers that are working with our kids be part of our training, depending on what that is. So anyway, just one thing that they do that's not on here, it's unique for a handful of districts, is that's where we purchase our pool for our food service, all of our food. We go through them, the purchasing cooperative, but that's outside of special education. So any questions or anything that Kelly or Matt might want to add to that? But by statute, they have to have a board. They have to have bylaws. They have policies. They have.
Don't they technically have a district number?
Yes.
About them.
So school districts are USDs, and they're numbered between 101 and the 500s. Interlocals have a 600 number. So they have a 600 number.
Any questions? On to the Rocket Online open paper.
Yeah, the Jelly of the Month Club. So I just wanted you to be aware, because later this month, I hope it's this month in this fiscal year. If not, it'll have to be next fiscal year. But the State Department, after we ended our contract last year, they did a deep audit of them and found a lot of students that did not meet the requirements to be funded. So it's a little over $187,000 that the state gave us in state aid that we then flowed right onto them. Well, they're a subcontractor. They were a subcontractor of us. The state didn't pay them. So we got a letter from the state saying that they overpaid us, and we have to pay the state back $187,000 plus of funds. So I reached out, we're working with them. They have agreed to write us a check for that amount. We will deposit it in our general fund as a reimbursement and then send the check onto the state. You need to be aware, because one of these days you're going to see, what did we just pay $187,000? They're going to send us, and they've agreed to it. It's just the timing of when we get that $187,000. I hope it's this month. We can spend above our budget any reimbursement for an expense. So it'll be a net zero to us. It's just a process that we've had to go through to collect that money back from them because it was in last fiscal year. And the state has been really good to work with because they don't want to penalize us. It's just we're the ones that have to get the money back because they were our contractor. So I just wanted you to be aware when you see that dollar amount show up as an expense, hopefully later at the end of this. Well, in July, when you see that, that's what that is. So no action needed, just awareness.
Who wants to tackle the e-fund credit card machine?
So last month you approved for the district to go with a new online payment tool. So when parents pay. And again, just a reminder, the one we adopted was costing us about $15,000 a year because anytime a parent would swipe the card to pay something, we were eating a 4% upcharge. And I think I gave the example, I went and paid the vet bill and they were like, you want to pay cash or card? And I said, what's the difference? They said, well, if you use a card, we're charging an extra 4%. I was like, we'll do cash. So we have a new tool, and then Aaron is going to correct me when I'm wrong. The model we think is most user-friendly is we will pay as a district a monthly fee for the service, then a parent has a choice. I can go on and electronically use my bank account to draw the money out of. And if I'm going to do $30 for whatever, for lunch fees or whatever, whenever they use that, it's $1.50 to use that service. Now they can write a check and it's nothing. If they use a credit card, it's $2.95 for up to $100. So the next up to 200 would be another $2.95. So we pay a fee for the service, which will be about $400 for the year for us to pay to get the service. And then the parent can choose checking, credit card, and it gets that 4% down, and then the parent can decide, do I want to use the service? Questions, clarity. We're trying to make it, there's all these kind of options, and it was like, let's just try to start with what makes.
It does kind of seem like the one from one extreme to the next extreme, but I had checked around to different 3A schools and districts in the area, and they're all charging a fee with these people. So we're not the.
I think that's common anymore.
Yeah,
Amongst a lot of wares. So
I'll pay $6.
Oh, well.
Just to be done with it.
I have to write a check and
So that
It makes it to the office, that's the fear, it's probably not getting.
Well,
And it reduces our cost of processing fees.
And we don't even see the processing fee, that all goes to youth, and so it's like, we were like double paying Rep Track for their services.
Well, I don't wanna lose your kids below this amount, pulled out of your account for food, cause I never know.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
perfect, just keep going, then I don't.
automatic.
Yes,
Yeah,
that is, I will always do that. Of course, every year, that $50 comes out the last day of school, oh yeah. And I'm like, well, for good for August.
So we do need to take action.
I move
So
that the
choose.
board. You want me to do it?
Yeah.
Okay. I move that the board approve the e-funds fee structure of $1.50 per checking account transaction and $2.95 per $2.95 per credit card transaction.
All in favor? 7-0. The ASB adopted agreement.
So this is for the legal services. I do use them quite a bit. The goal is to where you don't have to use them as board members. But it's $2,750 for the annual agreement for legal services and having attorneys. And actually, every first Monday and second Monday, or if they know that there's board meetings, they're sitting in their office right now available if we ever needed to make a call. I mean, but when it comes to non-resident, when it comes to any kind of policy, and they do our policy updates where they do a lot of legal services. So this is our annual.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, we used them a lot.
Yep.
Definitely done it. Yeah, they.
It's not that big. Just keep them on the.
Keep them on retainer.
Yeah. Can we get a motion in on that one?
Yeah, I move that we continue using KSB. We don't say that. Legal
Agreement and their legal,
or
it's just.
KSB adoption agreement and legal assistance
I would approve the
contract.
KSB adoption agreement as presented.
Second,
Second. Oh, John.
John, all in favor? 7-0. This next one is the superintendent authority for end of year transfer.
Yes, you have our authority.
Well, you have two options.
Okay.
Do you want to have a special meeting at the end of the month to approve all the transfers? Or do you want to give me the authority to make those transfers and present them to you at the July meeting?
We will special meeting for every.
I am comfortable.
I move that we grant the superintendent authority for end of year transfers.
Second.
Third.
Fourth.
7-0.
Not that we don't like hanging out together.
Sure.
No.
That would have been another breakfast.
Oh, man.
Don't tell me what food
Those
that.
breakfast burritos were pretty good.
It was so good.
All right, this next one.
They were really good. You missed that.
Facilities and equipment planning.
So the facilities planning committee,
Which we have one in attendance.
Mr. Andy Surratt was on that committee. They met several times.
It was more
and-
exciting than this.
I was gonna say.
I'll just hold it there. But you have a copy of it in front of you, and it's also in Diligent. The goal of this group was we had a lot of information to look at. We had the old study from a couple years ago. We had some more recent studies we looked at. But we had people on the committee that have been on our roofs, have been in our closets, from HVAC to electrical to the construction, with Barry White working on the middle school right now. So we had a really good group, and their task was with the narrative, looking at our current facilities from the lens of not adding something new, but in the next 5 to 10 years, these are things you need to have on your radar to fix, to upgrade. And they went building by building. There were some things that were just broad across all facilities, from security systems, cameras, window protection film for all entrances. That was one of the things we talked about we were going to try and get a grant for. We've got some roof replacements that, you know, are going to be expensive, but are going to be needing to have some attention. Masonry crack repairs. I mean, that's pretty much all facilities. Sidewalk concrete repairs. We got where it's busted out. We got in front of the high school where it's not really even, you know, trip hazard, just downspouts, drainage, lighting replacement. Preschool. When you see on here like rooftop HVAC units, they looked at the 6 original classrooms at the preschool. There's classrooms at the middle school. There's classrooms at the elementary school. And we talked about this earlier. It's those P-TAC, those wall units like you'd see in a hotel room. Those are getting old, they're getting inefficient, they're harder to replace, but they circulate the same air. When they looked at it, it was like not only from the lens of do those need to be replaced, but the original of safety and security, while you're doing it, their recommendation was look at rooftop units that can heat and cool those, but at the same time bring fresh air in. So it wasn't just your cheapest thing is to do this, it was also for the health reasons. It's better when you're going to replace them, do rooftop units where it pulls in. So they spent a lot of time, you know, preschool, the 6 classrooms that we're starting with the preschoolers have the original 1966 windows for efficiency, for, you know, so I've shared this with you a couple times, you know, just in notes, but just going through each building, it was really looking at these are things that are currently in place as a start. These are things as a board you're going to want to start having consideration moving forward. There aren't dollar amounts. This is kind of a summary because at some point it's up to the board then to say, do we want to have a construction management firm, an architect? Do we want to have a group come and start? But someone will need to know, where do we start from? But again, that was from the lens of, and it goes on to the back side of that, to the high school, to the vocational building, and then the football track complex. At some point, the board's going to have a conversation about replacing or repairing. You know, it's just hats off to the group. I agree with Andy. Those were really good meetings. A lot of deep conversations that I thought I'd tell my wife, oh, I'll be home by 7:30. And it was 9:30, and they're still talking about, so it was a really good group because they took it serious and they went through every building. I don't know if Andy, if you want to add anything constructive to the conversation.
Well, I'm just pretty much a repeat. I'm here for support for Brad because it was a good group of people and there was a lot of education for us. There was a lot of expertise in the room. You know, we found, you know, foundation issues that we need to get, things need to get fixed. We started with that. We have a good foundation, we can fix anything on top of that. You know, your HVAC units, the idea of with rooftop units, it's healthier for the children, it's healthier for everybody because you're replacing the air in the building so many times an hour. The pack units or whatever they call those on the wall, most of them are usually packed full of mold and everything else. And they just keep throwing the flu virus out there, you know, they just keep help spread it. Where the rooftop units, you know, they kind of filter the air and it really helps. But, you know, you have electrical issues. Buildings aren't falling apart. They just need some serious maintenance and some serious things fixed, you know, from the roofs to your foundations to HVAC and electric. It's not anything fun. You don't see it. It's not cool to look at.
Mhm.
It's sure nice to walk into a building with a good HVAC system, you know, good solid floors and walls and ceilings. You're not looking at a bunch of water stains or anything like that. And that was our main purpose, you know, and Brad had said something at one point, he goes, at sometime in the future, you know, he didn't bring this up tonight, but he said, we're probably gonna have to add classes to the grade school. My personal thought was, well, we have an issue with the grade school in the basement, in the original part, and the entrance. As much as I hate it, because I've lived in this town all my life, and I went to grade school there, but if you tore off the original part of the building, started there with your entrance, so you get your security, you get everything you need there, and then you get your new classrooms, and it takes care of all the dampness from the basement. The old coal chute that's still there. I went down in the basement, was cored, and it's pretty wet. You don't want to store anything down there. So yeah, I mean, it was a pretty good group of people, and I basically showed up tonight. I just wanted to support and see, you know, what might be able to come of it. You may be talking about a bond issue at some point, because things will fail way before you'll ever get the funds to replace them through the monies generated in the district. I mean, it'll fail.
Yeah.
And as bad as I hate to say that, you know, I don't want to raise anybody's taxes. I damn sure don't want to raise mine, but
Right.
I also want kids to have a good place to go to school.
Mhm.
But we weren't, our main thing was just maintain what we had, you know, the additions and all that, that's for somebody else. It's kind of where we're at with it.
You were.
Yeah, no, it was great. You know, Justice, I completely forgot that. We made email out to everybody. He put a little thing together on heating and air for our buildings. It was very helpful, but you know, the professionals that we had, it took time after their hard day, you know, was really impressive to see them do, you know, to input into the school and the community. So I would take to heart what they put down. And like Andy said, it was, and Brad also, it was a 5 to 10 year to fix what we have now.
Mm.
What we're looking at now. If it takes, you know, getting creative on rooftop units or what, you know, it was just going forward, fixing now. We'll talk about the other stuff. But this is our needs for the next 5 to 10 years.
Who decides what's the most urgent? Like, what is the most urgent on this list? What should we do? Who decides that?
Well,
Be the facilities.
Okay, start with your foundations. That's the most urgent thing, because you can't repair a building. There's no need to add anything to it if your foundation is doing failure.
Foundation
And
issues
then
are
you start
mostly at the
there.
middle school, or are they? I think we feel.
Basically, yeah, those two got some issues.
Okay, let's go.
Maybe a little bit over at those office school. It seems like grade school was in pretty good shape. You just have some issues in the basement.
Mhm.
But if we're gonna do an addition, you know, that might be a future conversation with classrooms in that scenario, but. You know, if you're gonna take it building by building, you know, each one of them has their own special little need or big need.
It's like 5
It's
to
not
10
anything
years
really
is
small.
urgent.
These things are small ticket item.
It's one of those where we make a plan and we deal with it when it breaks and
Right.
Well, that's what we're doing now. Dealing
Yeah.
with it when it's breaking.
And you know, hats off to your maintenance guy. I mean, he is patching and he's fixing, he's putting Band-Aids on stuff and he's keeping you going and keeping you dry as best he can. I mean, the man's, he's a busy guy. He's in it 100%. And I'm gonna add one thing, because Brad realized that all of us guys that are running around businesses were horrible on email.
Touche.
you know, so the goal was, and I know, you know, when we had the first facilities committee that our first meeting was June, a year from now. We had 16, 18 people that had parents, you know, so we already had a lot of work. With this task, the goal was to get people so Barry White builds schools. And he's done work.
Yes,
He's a mason. So I was like, Barry, I need you on this committee because he's been up in our ceiling tiles. He went through the elementary, down in the basement, Ozaki, pulling ceiling, I mean.
He's a wealth of knowledge. I mean, when he'll point out things, you're like, well, that makes complete sense. Never would have thought of it.
He brought in some of his own engineers that he works with.
He did.
And did some, analysis and
He's
suggestions.
a great resource. Had Chuck's Heating and Air, had Tim from M&M Electric. So the group was intentionally small, even though none of them know how to reply to emails.
No, we do.
They
Choose not to. Different.
they just choose not to, but they showed up to the meetings.
So they saw the
Like, I don't
email.
know if anybody's coming. Everybody just kind of nonchalantly comes in pretty soon. The room's full. I'm like, oh.
They did get my,
But again, the task was to look at our existing facilities from the lens of when you're thinking 5 to 10 years, what do you've got to have on your list? Now, dollar amounts, that will be up to the board to how we want to move some things forward. But that being said, in the meantime, Barry has already removed the concrete the cinder block wall between those two classrooms at the middle school. Now we're going to too wet to drive on it and skid loaders, but we do have over 100 high school kids that show up to morning weights that are going to get a little project of picking them up, throwing them in the dumpster, but letting it dry out a little. He's got a company we're working on to come and do core samples, drill down into those 6, 7, 8 foot deep, so we're starting some of the processes of really trying to get to know, because that is our worst foundation area, and Barry's kind of leading that effort.
He's found barrier issues and all that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, the middle school, there's really no insulation between the inside cinder blocks and the outside bricks that you see that look fancy. There's nothing. So that's another issue we've got to deal with, of how do we insulate the place.
so you're suggesting we try a bond again with these items? Is that-
So this is to give the board just an idea from a group of local professionals. Here's things that you're going to need to address regardless of, it might take a bond. But first we got to start out without talking about what we would like. Let's start with what you need to address. And that's what this was for.
Yeah, we're not a bond committee or anything.
No.
Like that. We're just.
Right, but I'm, like you said, we're gonna run out of money. We're not gonna be able to
Well,
do
you're gonna
this,
have
so.
barrier before. At the end of the day, I get it. Nobody wants to raise taxes, nobody wants to do that, but
Kind of
you're
do it
gonna
every
keep
3 months.
pumping taxpayer dollars into buildings that are not getting any younger. And we have limited resources to do it, so we can't tackle everything. And throughout the next 5 years, we're gonna run into a lot more trouble too. I mean, the reality is we have old buildings.
Yeah,
And without a bond issue, we're just gonna always be putting Band-Aids on them.
right.
But I get it. We put it to
Yeah.
the vote, but this is important. Like, with the people coming and looking at this other. I don't know who was all in the room, but having a bigger group of people assessing everything and looking at it, maybe that story can get told a little differently.
Right.
I mean, I guess maybe I took for granted the knowledge of how bad some of these buildings were, but not everybody knew that.
Mhm.
So, yeah, we have to do our job, but it's end for free. Think how much money it's gonna be.
At the
And
expense
in
of
5 years from
something.
now, what's the list look like then?
And, you know, when people ask why, what's it, right here,
Mhm.
go through the list, you know, that's what we gotta do. But that's what we need.
This is just what we have to do right now.
Well, and if you go back again to the board goal on facilities. Bullet one that came out of that community group, develop and maintain a prioritized list of facilities needs. Well, here's a start. But if you go down to the second to the bottom, create a facilities planning committee to evaluate district facilities and provide recommendations to the board. That was that group. And that, so we're trying to move some of these strategies forward also, because this is some of the stuff that no.
Well, we have to budget for it, and we gotta move forward without a bond, because we can't assume that. This is great, this is a really good list.
Continue it.
Well, and I thank that group because they were somewhat entertaining. They were a good group.
Oh, I bet.
to work with.
Interchange.
I learned a little about them. They learned a little about me. But
Nothing is contributed, but I was.
I will say, I've been in communities that did not have the resources that we do of knowledge around facilities. So,
Yeah, I think the, Western Kansas, it's a desert for a lot of those things. They're just,
And another thing, we have security issues. We have fire alarm issues. Things of that nature too. I mean, that's all very important.
Yeah, when we did that survey, security was at the top of the list for priorities from parents and community members.
you look at our elementary, no fire alarm system in there. It takes a neighbor to notice there's smoke and then for them to call,
yeah, that's.
So that sounds
We need to
like
get that.
I feel like
We've
that's
got
a
an
big-
electrical panel at the middle school that is,
You have some boiler issues at the middle school. We have some piping issues at the middle school. Or not at the middle, I'm not still not here.
we're talking.
I'm not here to be the head, of course, I'm hungry, I'm gonna go.
No, I appreciate
Thank
you
you.
doing that,
Yes,
being a part of
thank
it.
you.
But I did want to come in and support, we did have a good committee and I think they all did a great job, but.
Thank you.
Check your emails in the future.
Yeah.
We might get back.
All right.
Got the
Thank
color.
you.
Good night, guys.
Thanks, Andy. Take care.
Andy. Have a good
Enjoy
night.
the rest of your meeting.
She's like, I'm out.
I'm just old, tired, I'm painting all day.
That yellow paint.
Good. Future, discussion on district growth.
So again, this is something that I think it would be good for the board to start putting consideration to. And almost a little bit in phases. One, start out with what are our needs? The other thing is, even when you think back to the bond issue, there was questions about on there, 4 classrooms at the elementary, 4 classrooms at the middle school, new ones. But there really wasn't an opportunity or a time for the board of the community to have a discussion about the growth of this district. What is our growth? What is our desired growth? We're just outside of an urban suburban area. And we just posted, if you go out on our website and you go to enrollment, then you click on non-resident this week or last week, by July 1, which was a Sunday, by law, we have to post our open slots available for non-resident students. 5 of those classes have zeros on it because we just don't have. Now, a kid moves in, by law, we have to educate them. if we have room by law, we have to take them if they're out of district with the new law. So I think moving up soon, it would be good for the board to have that kind of a discussion about our space available. And if, do we need 2 classrooms at each, what, you know, both Andy mentioned it, Barry White talked about it, because he walked through the whole elementary, the top ceiling tiles looked up, but also went in the basement. Is that something that we need to address in the event we do someday want to add space, you know, so, but I think the big thing that would be healthy for the board, maybe July, August, or some point, is to have some time to just tell me what you need, if that's a conversation we would like to have as a board. But at some point, I think the board probably ought to spend some time talking about growth. Do we want to be a district that wants to limit no more out of district now there's laws around that, but I mean, it's just, but to talk about, what does the law say? What is our space? You know, we looked at the option or the request. Do we go to 4 sections of 2nd grade? We don't have a classroom to put a 4th section, let alone the teacher. And kind of the, okay, you add classrooms, but can you immediately hire new teacher? Well, it's a growth thing. Then you got to have the numbers of kids to generate the revenue to, you know, so, but just something that wanted to lay out there for future, if that's something that the board would want to.
I would love to have that conversation, just as a separate conversation. Going alone.
Yeah, it would take.
From a board meeting.
We need to. I'm not saying have a special one, but
Something, yeah.
that's a big.
Or a month where we have a really light agenda.
Yeah.
I'd also be curious about a community survey. I'm curious where the community falls on growth and district growth, and my guess is it's pretty split, which makes it tricky.
Yeah, the thing, and I really hope, and I don't know how many people are coming online, because you can ask, the challenge with surveys is you make the assumption that they heard everything that everybody heard, and they understand that if they live in district, you have to take them.
Yeah.
If they're out of district and you have space, you have, I mean, so I think growth might be one of those where we bring to the board information, enrollment trends, what the law requires. It might be something that we might want to have some realtors talk about. You know, we just recently, the county has put up a bunch of stuff, you know, what do we anticipate just our county? Now KASB used to do enrollment trend projections, but they stopped doing that service. But there might be some things that the county could provide on census. You know, there's a lot of things that the board might want to have as to inform a discussion, but I do think before you put something on that, you know, because people will ask, well, you know, we had more students when I was going to school here. Well, you know, at some point, 120 to 140 of our kids were over in Ozaki. And then we brought all K-12 back here, and all of a sudden it, you know, and so that's, I think, we just want people to be informed.
Yes.
Regardless of what.
Yeah.
So.
I think definitely.
So I'll start working on some things, see what I can find. We can start chipping away. I'll try to have some things at the July meeting. Maybe then follow up, well, hey, can you check with this or, but we've got some needs that I think are important. And at some point, the board's going to have a conversation about, are we ready to put a dollar figure to this? Well, that's going to take someone outside. But what's not on here is anything that deals facility wise with space. Well, I think it'd be good for the board then to talk about, well, what do we mean by space? Why? And that is driven by cheeks in the seats. So.
My fear is that we're gonna have to overfill our classes for people to realize that we need more space. And I don't want that, because that is not best for students. Well, we have, some.
The middle schools, there's kids getting it, so you
Yes.
can go to the bathroom.
But that's my fear, is it's gonna have to be drastic before people will open their eyes and accept that. And
Well,
that's not good for students.
Yeah, and I would hope that when we start this conversation, then we could have a special meeting where we invite the community in, or we get more people that can join online, that can listen and,
Hear the boss.
have some.
Yeah, and then we could put out the survey, and that's what I think it is getting the information to people before you even ask the question.
Yeah, I agree.
I'd like to add, when you talk about the space at the elementary school, realize too, we're offering the computer class. We offer an art class. We have music when it's dedicated room. So these are all dedicated rooms, a speech dedicated room, which also houses OT and PT. 3 special ed rooms. So, well, next year, 2 this year, but 3 next year. So while we are meeting those needs, and when I give a tour, my favorite part is to stop and say, we offer art. So many schools don't. And I think that just adds to what we do here in this building, because we start that passion of art young. So we could get a lot of room if we'd stop doing some of these good things. So, I know one of the things you may hear is, well, when I was a kid, I was a kid in 5th grade, and there were 3 sections, and the building was smaller than it is now. But we didn't have. We were music in that old basement we were talking about. We didn't have art. We didn't do the things we have. So that's a big piece of our space.
And I think all that needs to be compiled together. I mean, everything needs to be taken into consideration. All that needs to be put together. It's a lot.
I just think that's a common something we make here is, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Yeah, but they didn't have art. We have art.
I think it's important to point out as well, like what our other neighbors are offering as well, that, like, for example, while I didn't have an art classroom, this district doesn't either, or this does, and I guess what I'm trying to say is our kids are gonna miss out on things, and just because you didn't have them doesn't mean that it's not gonna affect them in the future.
Right.
If other districts are offering these great services,
Sure.
and your child is not getting the opportunity, or the children in your community are not getting that opportunity.
Well, the value of what we have right now is time. Time to have conversations, time to look at, and if this was something that, which I think is important, but if that's something that the board, then I will start trying to pull information in, trying to bring to the next meeting information to start having, that a lot of it is, well, who are we now? Well, and where have we been, and what's different space wise now than it was 10, 12 years ago? It's just, so we'll work on that and because we do have time to have conversations about facility needs, about space needs, about.
Throughout the whole bond process. I think we really failed at selling this part of it, but I mean, everybody wants to talk about student teacher ratio, which is one of the great qualities here, but I mean, that's changing. And I have been one that has said, well, we used to have more students here. I don't remember what year we stopped using the Ozaki building, but a lot of people don't understand like what, get the information before you ask the question, because in 2010, we had 895 students and we had one more teacher on staff than we have now. I mean, if you go down consistent with all of this, like there's not been a reduction of staff. But we are significantly under the enrollment numbers that we had at one point in time. Yes, other building is a big part of it. I don't remember what year that happened.
When it came back, right
When we
around,
stopped doing
when we
it.
stopped doing Ozaki, I had 9, 10, 10, 11.
Yeah,
I think it was 9, 10.
That's what I assumed, which is why I used 2010. We had 892 students in here with one more educator. So if people really care about that, we need to find a way to let them see and understand that part of it. I just think we didn't focus on the things that resonate most with people that might not be paying attention.
We're looking at it from different angles.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to give them the information.
We're looking at infrastructure, so that it's personal.
Yeah, let's take the first part out of it, let's just use data.
So we will start, putting that on for the next couple months with information, but.
Just shoot out a price list tomorrow.
During your downtime.
Yes, but
Thank Wes.
while I'm in the facilities planning or the school
Get up there
finance
about
task
numbers
force,
and that.
listening to them about arguing about low and high enrollment weighting, we'll be working on.
That'd be great. Just hand
You
it
get there
around.
and put to.
Yeah.
What do you think that it costs?
Moving right along the preschool signage.
So you have a couple pictures here. The signs are in production. We hope to have them installed in July. The question I have of you is, so the Jefferson West preschool sign that you see on there will be right above the front doors. To the lower left of it, but to the right of the downspout, they got it to the left of the downspout, is a 4.5 foot tall tiger cub that the kids will get to take their picture next to on day one of school.
Aaron, it's gonna be good.
I'm gonna totally put the vector underneath
You just said
there.
hi.
We stood Aaron
I'm
next
5'1",
to see
so
where it was good
might
to
be in
fit.
its
We're like,
whispers.
oh, move over to your right.
She didn't have to wear a suit, but it helps.
I could.
The question is, there's a 5 foot tall tiger face that could go somewhere to the right on that building or that front, or if you look at the next page, there's a lot of real estate over on those classrooms where we can kind of spread some things out, or we can put it all at the front entrance.
I would put the larger one on this other side of the building. I'd
that's too
separate them a
much.
little.
Just kind of
I think it'll
balance
make
it.
more of an impact too, and you'll be able to have
Where
more
the
touch
playgrounds,
points.
Mhm.
be in the playground area or right beside it. I agree.
I like that. Mhm.
Well, this is gonna be a sign.
What is it gonna be?
If we don't like it.
No, it just, well, my thought is if we do security upgrades of any kind and we redo the front, that can be moved.
Yeah, they'll be bolted to the wall, but we can also always remove them.
I don't know why I thought they were gonna be painted wrong.
No, it's like this.
No, the painting is at the school.
We're busy that day.
Next Thursday.
2 days.
So, not an action item, just wanted to get your thoughts on it. I think it would be good, because when you're coming from either direction, you get to see a little bit. Awesome.
This,
That actually was faster than I thought it would.
Yeah.
Let us just tell you where to put that.
I'm gonna let Dave talk about, this is a request for the track and football storage donations you did up.
Yeah, so there,
Clarify which building it is.
it's a stroke
Is it the one on the back of the?
by the parking lot, by the dumpster. Yeah, let's see.
But it's
It's just a
done.
storage shed, you put a mower in, it's been there forever.
Never noticed
They
it.
have to lock it. So for years, there's been requests to change that, but it's. Didn't pay a lot of attention to it, so what we have now is. A group of people. That are wanting to do their part and donate private dollars, but the ask is. A public-private partnership of a 50-50. So the ask is to ask the district. Not to exceed $8,000. I had a plan to present. Like actual numbers, but today. Don't hold me to this, I probably shouldn't even say it, but there might be a chance that that building is donated. I have not gone out and asked local community members of any kind outside of a pretty large group of growing people that just want to do their part and help. But also, for the time being, would like to have the anonymity of it. Just because sometimes donations don't always get received that well here. But it is a growing group, and so the building would be. A 2 or 3 stall garage doors, stick built, metal wrap was the idea. Football has one, track and field, and I don't think cross country has any needs for it. They have their own, and then the third one is. Maybe that, I mean, that's district need, maybe it's all the field usage stuff for game day and track event, or maybe the gator, or what, like the grill, or like. That'd be up to. Others. This way it's serving as many people as possible. It's not just a football storage because. We have stuff everywhere and. It's just not very functional. And then when we have overlap of different sports going on and activities, there's stuff everywhere. It's that storage shed is what you would put your mower in, and I bet you've replaced it by now. It gets broken into, it's had critters in there, nothing can stay, nothing, it's just, go drive by. It's inadequate. It's busting at the seams full. We have stuff that we pay money for sitting outside getting ruined, where this would remedy that. Right now, it's the current low and current high. The current low, including the tax and 20% of waste built in, is 14.3. The high end, which is extremely high, it's inflated just to be safe, was 17.4. The ask of a group of people is, well, why did we get here? Let's see if the district will match that. They really want to be the one to ask that question, but I actually agree with it. You've got a lot of people. Are you going to turn down $8,000 to $10,000, and the most you got to pay is $8,000 to put something in that will last forever and be adequate to support as many? I mean, if you would think about middle school, high school football, middle school, high school track and field, more storage to utilize the district building for all that, it serves so many people. And if we don't do it, well, then we gotta buy a new mower shed. And I don't think I can get the money for that. So I will present. This phone call I got today is not even a local person. But if that comes through, then this all changes. And that just happened today, which is why I didn't bring the person. But it's, I mean, there's a building, if you go down that back way, it's 3 stall metal building with 3 garage doors, each one. Each one, football.
Well, I'm trying to picture where it is. Is it like
and it's
where
all
the-
right there.
It's right by, thing is?
No, it's by the park. You pull into the.
It's blue.
The visitor park.
Oh, the visitor park. Okay.
That's what they want to put in. It's a 3 stall like that, where track, football, whatever, what they're wanting to do. What is there, if you go down around the corner, is the white building with the rotten all on it.
I guess I just never looked, I've never.
So that-
Nobody said it because it's out of sight. out of
Yeah,
mind.
that's what I'm
It's
saying.
just-
I
Stop
never
back
paid
up on it.
attention to
I
it.
would recommend if you're. Here's what I need to know. We have to do locates, we have to get everything involved to get this done, if it's gonna even be functional, so. I wanna be able to report back
and get the ball moving. And so my ask is if that idea is adequate to everyone, what are everyone's thoughts on accepting that permit? All the labor is donated, so it's just material costs. And I have not spoken to a single local person yet outside of like individuals about, would you be willing? Like, there's a lot of different people that might be willing, but I didn't want to get the cat out of the bag too soon. And then you guys hear about it through hearsay and not like books.
And the materials would run.
Well, that would be my question, because I don't know if we run through the district with the match when we purchase through the district, or I don't know.
You can do it either way. For the district, part of their in-kind match could be materials.
Yeah,
We could order from a lumber company
Right.
but not to exceed.
not to exceed, and I put that number in there because it fell in the middle, and everyone is on board, but if it runs higher than that $14,000 to $16,000 number, that's on the private money to step up for that. There was talk of everyone doing it at the same time, but they have a lot of plans of supporting any and all organizations, extracurricular sports and clubs as needed. And that's all gonna start happening, but I think they just wanna see the district is on board with that and it's welcome. And that's kind of where this is at. And I'm very much part of it, but it kind of came to me and I ran with it. And I'm gonna be all in on it. Cause I think we'd be foolish not to like knock out some stuff on the list with money that's not spoken for here.
Part of the goal.
That's why we're talking about it. Not doing it for me.
So does anybody have a problem with that, to not to exceed the 8,000?
Is that a wise use of money
That's
considering the
my
budget talk?
fear.
Like, can we do it?
Yeah,
Yes, we should.
it's the financial side of it.
But
I don't know.
if you said 6, it'll be out of capital outlay.
Yeah.
If you said we need, this goes back to the one other things. Is it on our needs list? No.
Yeah,
But we know this is not a comprehensive.
Right, it's
Right.
not, one, it's not a comprehensive, but two, does it meet the work with local businesses to address facility needs that can be accomplished through community involvement? It does, and if we can do it for half the cost, then yes.
No, I want to say yes.
Yeah,
I'm just
I
trying
think
to make
so.
sure every
It's
question
shipping
gets
in
asked.
the end.
There's like 15 and growing. Some have kids in the district still, some don't. And not, well, I mean, okay, not one of them business owner, I mean, I'm a business owner, there are some there, but like, that's not the design here, it's. Think about the old touchdown club, only now incorporate as many as you can, and they're not just wanting to be specific with sport.
We're looking at activities too.
Every extracurricular. Not everything can do that, but like this one here, the only way that it was even possible to bring here was. They were not just gonna build a football storage. Now, how can we incorporate other things? And this gives everybody what they need, because. I have talked with some coaches on the idea of it across the board and. Yeah, they're all very much behind it, because what we're doing right now is just throwing stuff in corners and getting in the way and stuff gets lost.
Isn't a whole room in the weight room dedicated to storage right now? Like, or not the weight room, the locker room.
Yeah, things that,
Yeah.
I mean, they use.
it wasn't the main purpose of the shower room.
you see,
Right.
the
But that-
locker rooms in the middle school have chairs and desks and.
So part of the whole thing, I don't wanna get up.
No,
Part
they don't.
of this because it's. I think people kind of want to see how this goes, but there will be like an ask of every program to, it's kind of like the education foundation. But it's not gonna be a grant, it's just going to attack what we can as needed. And they're not gonna cover everything, but everybody knows the district's financial situation and I think they just want to do their part. Some people donate $100, some people donate $40.
Like to volunteer.
Just because it wasn't on this, we didn't focus really too much out of the track. I mean, we did, I only think the group went out to the track.
Yeah.
If they did, they would see the building.
And they wouldn't be on this.
Then it was.
So I don't, like, if you guys wanna get something more official, whatever, we're just the time to be able to get some of this stuff done is upon us, if it's gonna be utilized. So, we need to get a locate called out, we need to get city involved in.
So you just want a general blessing that yes, go forward, we are behind
And I don't
this.
care if you want to have every single thing roll through board approval after that, of course, I just wanna know, will you support that?
I think we should have board approval.
Well, we'll run everything through that, but
For this project.
Yeah.
The request was a not to exceed 8,000.
And you're comfortable with that, considering, okay, then that's fine.
I wouldn't have brought it here. But, again. This is what we're talking about.
I just wanna make sure all the questions get asked that could potentially come at us
Everything's
later.
going through here and
Yep.
I'm the one doing it, so it will be buttoned all the way
Add
up.
that to the plate.
All right, I move that the board approves the donation request to a new building storage facility for the football track complex. Financial amount not to exceed $8,000.
Second.
All in favor? So. How much for executive session?
On that note, if it can be done with the half of the private money without the district's part of it, that's the first plan.
Yeah, no, I figured,
Potential that it doesn't
Yeah.
even cost us.
Right, no,
It's just
absolutely.
more to.
yeah, that'd be great.
Cross your T's.
Um.
Yeah.
How many minutes?
Quit saying that.
I'm going to say
20 minutes.
Mr. President, I move to enter executive session for KSA 754319 for a period of 20 minutes at 8:25 PM to discuss personnel issues of non-elected personnel under a KOMA exception, including Dr. Nguyen-Swander and administration, with the open meeting to resume in the boardroom at 8:45 PM.
Second.
All in favor? Coming up.
we gotta go to their script and wax and forwards in there.
We're going to teacher's lounge.
Probably all gotta be in review.
Okay. Yeah.
Mr. President, I move to enter executive session per KSA 75-4319 for a period of 10 minutes at 8:46 PM to discuss personnel issues and non-elected personnel under a KOMA exception, including Dr. Nguyen-Swander and admin, with the open meeting to resume in the board meeting room at 8:56 PM. Ooh, okay.
Second, ouch.
John got it.
That was rough, Aaron.
I know. It's been a week. So my son thought, I don't know why he thought weights to do that.
Been a long one.
Wrap her up. Talking to go.
You have the motion here.
Yes. We need Brad or?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, I moved the Board of Education, oh wait, no, wrong thing.
Should be on the board report. Did I highlight them?
Yeah, but
On the report.
not this part.
Not that part.
Yeah, one.
I move that the board accepts the contracts for Alec Bartle as the middle school head boys basketball and middle school assistant girls basketball coach. And Tyler Pitts as the 5 through 12 vocal music teacher. As presented.
Second.
Oh, and
Oh,
the
sorry,
food
sorry.
service staff. Updating to full-time positions to replace this vacancies,
Who was that?
period.
Second.
Sure, second.
As
Never know.
due diligence.
As done.
Yeah, I
I
like
move
that.
that the board accepts the resignation of Chelsea Martin as the high school ELA teacher. As presented.
Second.
All in favor? Never know. Superintendent report.
So just a few things. First, preschool update. We are at 38 students right now, so it continues to grow just a little. We've got this summer, actually in the next week or two, several screenings of students that the Keystone staff are working on, about 9 of them. So our target is to get around that upper 40s to mid 50s number to start the school year. So I don't know, Wes, if you have any.
I have a handful. We had our initial interest list and I started calling all of them one by one to say, hey, you're not on our accepted list. Is there a question? Anything I can help with? And some have said, oh, I just haven't done it yet. Some are looking for childcare before or after or transportation. About 5 or 6 of them said, if the transportation is a problem for us, we can't do that. So I moved them down a little bit to keep track of them. I've still got 5 or 6 that are trying to decide and things like that. I've heard of a handful of others that are thinking about it. This isn't a guarantee, but Hannah Dryling looked up some data, and typically we also get approximately identify about 15 kids per year that come into 3 and 4 year old program through Keystone. So even though we may be sitting at 38 now, maybe we get 40, 45. If we follow the average traditional, we're going to put 15 more through the school year as they're identified. They have to be 3 by September 1st, unless they are a 3 year old that gets identified through screening. Then they can start mid-year.
Okay.
So number wise, we're lower than I would like right now, but I think there's some good potential. With some are just starting. Families really aren't in that mindset right now. I thought we get people painting, we get some pictures, we get some things about the building, post it and say spots available, enroll now. Enrollment will be open by then.
We're doing better signs.
Bump it along.
They're in production, so hopefully get them installed in July.
That'll be
So,
exciting too. The Tigers.
yes. And so because we're still, the funding is based on the kids and enrolling. So we talked about staff discounts. I don't have a recommendation yet, other than the closer we get, the better idea we will have to be able to provide what form of a discount we could afford.
Yeah.
With ultimately the goal, when you think we have 65 to 70 kindergartners every year, we could potentially have 100 3 and 4 year olds over there. I think we'll get there. We just got to build the program, and at that point, I think it'll be a great for staff members. Just send your kids. we got.
Is it possible we've got staff members holding off on enrolling until they know if there will be a discount?
I don't think we
I don't
have,
think so on staff member.
yeah, I think all of our staff members, their kids are going. So anyway, work schedules though, as we mentioned, we met over there again this morning. We've got our punch list. Our goal is open the doors and have it the most pleasing place. There's things that we'll have to do construction wise, maintenance wise during the year, over Christmas break, the next year. We just want to have it the most pleasing to get in. LaDonna's been working, looking at, the kitchen. We can't afford to go a whole full-blown kitchen, but we just got to have it to where we bring food in. So between kitchen, between playground, Kansas fencing should be out in the next few weeks to install the fence. We're going to get with R&S to look at the basement escape where you come out the west and come up those stairs. We got to have new rail around that so kids don't fall through down this. So we just have some things that need to be done that Steve Johnson or Lake Shore Painting, whatever, they'll be out before August 1 to get the exterior upgraded painting. So they're it's going to look sharp. We have looked at the parent night where they bring the kids in to drop their books off and stuff. They do it one night at the elementary. The next night we're looking at there early August 12th. Probably trying to schedule a special meeting to have over there, just to call the meeting to order, have the board come out, have a ribbon cutting and with the parents and the kids. And so just kind of a kickoff to invite parents in with the ribbon cutting, some kind of a ceremony to kick the year off. But, so anyway, it's going to be busy over the next month, 2 months, getting it ready, but it'll be ready to go. And Doug has been great to work with. Doug Anderson, they've already moved everything out. They've cleaned, they've got one classroom.
Sorry.
Don't go in the gym.
It's in the area.
No, if you want to shoot hoops, there's a few goals that you could still, but
Baseball worked around that.
but they got them in there so we could
that's
focus on the classrooms and everything. So they've been great to work with. So health insurance committee, we are pulling together a committee, as we all know, and the negotiations team has talked about. We have the Cadillac health insurance plan. Not only is it a great plan, but it's extremely expensive. So we are bringing in a committee. The teachers have designated their people. We've got some classified, but we're going to try and have our first meeting mid-June. And we're bringing in a company that, I don't want to say brokers. They do facilitate health insurance. They don't provide health insurance. They provide that type of a service where they're going to meet with our staff and start talking about, here's where you're at, here's what options are, here's what's changed in the last 10 years. So we're going to start having those conversations several times throughout the summer into August, because if our membership wants to do something different to move out of the Blue Cross pool, a decision will have to be made late September, early October.
I remember it was really early. That's
Otherwise,
what
we'll be for 3 more years with
Yeah.
our current plan. So, but just to let you know that we're gonna start having those meetings here in a couple of weeks. And the nice thing is, most of the people on that are off during the summer, or they're retired, so we can have those during the day.
So the committee members are already chosen?
Yes,
Okay.
And they're gonna bring a recommendation to us.
yes.
Perfect.
So
So I don't wanna make that decision.
Me neither.
well, it's really got to be that balance between, do they have something that's proven?
Yeah.
A track record? Is it comparable enough benefits wise? And is the savings justifiable? You know, so there's a lot that has to go into that. Because if we were at state average per employee, you're probably talking $350,000 to $400,000 less that we could then reinvest. Not all of it, because we'd want to keep some in a pool to be able to buy cost, you know. But anyway, that's the discussions that'll be going on over the next 2-3 months.
And any changes that happen have to be voted on by teachers through negotiations? They have to also approve, or they have to approve it? Or I'm trying to remember.
Partially.
Okay,
Part of it is, it's got to come to the board
okay,
because that's a benefit.
right, okay.
But it's got to be something that the members support.
Mhm.
Otherwise, because most districts negotiate salaries and benefits. So that's got to be something that is negotiated with the board and the staff. But with our plan, since we're with the Blue Cross pool, being a member of that means whatever it goes up, the district covers, because that's what's required with that plan. Which is why it's going up 100,000. The board's got to eat that.
Yeah.
And most districts negotiate the salary schedule, and if health insurance goes up, do we want to kick another $200 per month in? That's both of those are negotiated. We don't have a choice to do that with the Blue Cross pool plan, because their requirement to be a member is the district pays that.
So as is, we do not negotiate benefits. If we
Well,
were to change, then they would.
Right, we negotiated, or as a district, we got on that because no one else would pay this.
Right,
And by doing that, we don't, so anyway, it's gotta go to the board, but we are starting those conversations this month to get that committee, and negotiated agreement lays out who's on that committee.
Yeah.
So we've pretty much got the committee filled per negotiated agreement. Now we are getting ready to schedule to have that company. So we'll contract with that company to come in. Phase 1 is education. If that group then decides, yes, this is something we believe we ought to move forward with, then we enter into a second phase of looking at companies, whether it's getting on the Greenbush pool, whether it's we could contract with Blue Cross as a standalone, you know, there's a lot of options. But before we get to that, it's really the educational part of where are we and what does the market look like? And that starts in a couple of weeks. So
awesome.
we would like to set a time for any interested board members that Aaron would like to have to schedule a time in the near future to start planning for the back to school bash.
Yeah, Aaron, with the line. You said that there's already some things in place, and I can come chat with you later, but
Melanie has some stuff, but we need to get that in the plans.
Okay, what
And
is the date? I have to speak.
it is August,
Thursday.
it's
Seventh?
Thursday, the Thursday, so the
August 7th
7th,
is the Thursday
yes.
before school starts.
Yeah.
It's Thursday.
August
I mean,
7th.
that's 7.
So
Yeah.
that date's set, so we gotta back things up. Melanie Hayner has files of stuff and she's willing to assist. She's just,
Got it.
Yeah, no,
It's a big
fine.
job.
It's a big job.
yes,
Do we wanna do a smaller group and then make it a bigger thing, like? Next Wednesday or the Wednesday after, does anybody wanna get together at 5 or 5:30?
Well, we have to make up the injured, that's in the message for working.
Huh?
a makeup game?
Yeah, already.
The 11th?
Yeah, Jacob just said makeup.
Jacob.
Jacob. So that's, like, if we want me to do that.
How about I come get this stuff and then how about the 18th? Would that work for anybody?
Oh, wait, I don't know this one.
Works for Wednesday again. Yeah, or we could do lunch at B&B, like I'm down with that.
Evenings for a while.
Yeah.
How about lunch?
Lunch on the.
On the 16th, is that what you're saying?
You guys do Monday the 16th at noon?
Read a calendar, invite.
I
Got
think
it.
so. It looks like.
Just can't have more than three of you.
That's fine.
That's true.
We can kick them out.
I don't think there's gonna be that many fighting for this.
It'll work too. Monday,
So 4 table this week.
Monday, June 16th. Yeah. We'll send a calendar.
Yeah.
I'll just keep working.
No, yes. Perfect, thank you. And then I just want to give a shout out. One to Washburn Rural. And I'll visit with their superintendent because they just, the items that they had that were of quality that we didn't feel like we were just putting old secondhand stuff, but it's significant for us to be able to start the school year with tables, with file cabinets, with chairs, with credenzas, with stuff. And I will come up with an appropriate way to thank them. But I also want to thank, I had to find out how old Phil Korb was. He's not that much younger than me, but he moves a lot better than I do. But Phil, Wes, Tim Roberts, thanks to them for their own equipment, their own trailers and everything. But when we walk through the preschool and you look at the furniture and you look at everything, we got a big thank you that we need to do to Washburn because they, and I've got a few other districts that when I sent the message out, I'm going to go look at to see some other things. But, you know, when you build, you buy new, it's hard to get rid of old stuff. There's a lot of that out there. And some of the good, I love American Pickers. That's one of my favorite shows. And I was in picker heaven. But it's, but what's not of use or purpose for some districts is for others. So we will be working out a dollar amount with them. But anyway, it's been significant for us to capital outlay wise to be able to start out with really nice equipment and furniture. furnishings, so.
Anything else?
That's all I had.
Meeting adjourned.
Oh, I'm super jealous of the middle school though.
Yeah, it looked beautiful.
Uh-oh.